I think there is something very grotesque about how many in the MAGA movement are now using their religion as some sort of weapon. And more specifically, I'm talking about the evangelical Christians, which have pretty much turned into a Christian nationalist sect that makes up a large majority of the MAGA movement. But I think we are living through very strange times, because we are now living in a world where a reverend can give an excellent speech about unity and coming together, and people in the MAGA movement are now on the attack against that reverend because the speech was directed at Dear Leader. It should be non-controversial for a person of God to give a service about unity, about coming together as a people and doing what is best and loving one another. This should be non-controversial, whether you are a Jew, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim. These are pretty fundamental beliefs that many religious people hold. But in Trump's America, if you speak out against Dear Leader, then they're coming for you. And I think that is something that is fundamentally changed since I was a kid. I want to take a look at this speech because the Reverend at the National Cathedral gave an excellent speech about unity. And I'm sure many of you saw the viral clip that is going around, but I think we should lift up and exemplify these strong and courageous voices when we can. This was an excellent speech about coming together and loving one another and making sure that we are building our country based around unity. Otherwise, it's like a house built on sand. It was a beautiful, beautiful speech. And of course, it was directed at Donald Trump because he was just inaugurated as the 47th president. He is now the most powerful man in the world. And so a priest is calling to his better angels and saying, please have mercy on the people of this country. This should not be controversial, people. This should not be controversial. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first part of her speech where she's talking about adopting the mindset of a first responder. Because first responders don't go around and ask who you voted for before they put the fire out.
Those across our country who dedicate their lives or who volunteer to help others in times of natural disaster, often at great risk to themselves, never ask those they are helping for whom they voted in a past election or what positions they hold on a particular issue. And we are at our best when we follow their example.
So imagine what she's saying here. Of course, the speech was directed at Trump. He is the next commander-in-chief, the most powerful man in the world. Of course, she was going to be speaking a message that was directed towards him. But all she is asking is that we're looking out for all Americans. That we're adopting the mindset of a first responder who doesn't go around and ask who you voted for before they decide to administer help to you. It should be non-controversial, people. It should be non-controversial. She then goes on to say that contempt has become normalized in America. Now, obviously, Donald Trump could take this personally, and maybe he should, but coming from a reverend who is speaking about unity, maybe it's good to call some of these things out.
But for some, the loss of their hopes and dreams will be far more than political defeat, but instead a loss of equality and dignity and their livelihoods. Given this, then, is true unity among us even possible? And why should we care about it? Well, I hope we care. I hope we care. Because the culture of contempt that has become normalized in this country threatens to destroy us. We are all bombarded daily with messages from what sociologists now call the outrage industrial complex. Some of that driven by external forces whose interests are furthered by a polarized America. Contempt fuels political campaigns and social media, and many profit from that. But it's a worrisome, it's a dangerous way to lead a country.
And she is exactly correct about that. If you are demonizing people, if you are dehumanizing whole swaths of people and treating them with contempt, that is no way to lead a healthy and functioning country. From a reverend, this is a message that one should expect. Maybe if somebody like me was giving it, maybe you could take a little bit more issue with the advice. But from somebody who serves God, who serves others, who is speaking in front of the nation a message of unity, this should be pretty bog standard stuff. Now, I'm not trying to discount her speech. It was a beautiful speech. I think that everybody should go listen to it. But the message is clear. Leading a country in the name of contempt or with contempt is probably not the best thing to do. And it's a message that is true whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. I have no qualms, or I have no doubt that if this was Joe Biden, who was just sworn in as the 47th president, that she would be giving this same speech. Because unity is something that helps create a cohesive and functioning democracy. She then goes on to say that it's important for unity to honor the dignity of every human being. Also, non-controversial, guys.
The first foundation for unity is honoring the inherent dignity of every human being, which is, as all the faiths represented here affirm, the birthright of all people as children of our one God. In public discourse, honoring each other's dignity means refusing to mock or discount or demonize those with whom we differ, choosing instead to respectfully debate our differences, and whenever possible, to seek common ground. And if common ground is not possible, dignity demands that we remain true to our convictions without contempt for those who hold convictions of their own.
Again, pretty standard stuff when we're talking about unity. Showing respect to those that disagree with you, not treating them with contempt. And even if you still disagree, still having the humor or the dignity to treat them with respect or show them that you respect their dignity. This should be non-controversial stuff. It is pretty evident to everybody in this country that social media has poisoned our political discourse, where the outrage takes the day, and that if we can just remember to treat one another with dignity and respect, that maybe we could craft a more unified society. And of course, that goes along with not mocking one another just because you disagree. And yes, Trump is the king of trying to mock everybody who shows the slightest inkling of a disagreement. But like I said, this message is clear and true, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, or even a non-voter. She then goes on to say, to make a direct plea to the President of the United States. This is where it gets a little bit spicy. This is a direct plea to the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. And I think she was courageous for saying all this stuff directly to Trump's face. I think it took a set of stones to be able to say what she said here.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
That was a powerful plea to the President of the United States, calling on his better angels, calling on him to be a better man. When you've got somebody like Donald Trump, who has demonized trans kids, trans people, when you've got a person like Trump, who has demonized and dehumanized the entire immigrant population, I think you should expect those in church, those who preach in church, I think you should expect a message like this. And I think that most people have a pretty good understanding that these types of messages coming from a church is pretty normal. But in Trump's America, apparently it's not normal. They have been attacking this reverend, and I think she deserves all the praise in the world because she had the strength and the courage to stand up for the little guy, even when it seemed like maybe not the cool thing to do. But MAGA has been attacking her, and I find that particularly disgusting. I think many of us have probably been to church before. I know I grew up in an evangelical household. I know that messages of unity and loving your neighbor and treating people with respect and dignity is something that I would expect to hear from a pastor. But the MAGA movement has twisted their religion into a weapon to be used against their political foes. They have perverted the idea of their Christianity. And I think if Jesus were to come back today, as they pray that he would, I think he would be disgusted by what he sees in the MAGA movement. Because whatever that is going on there, it's not very Christ-like. What lessons are you drawing from the Bible that say you should hate your neighbor who doesn't agree with you? You should hate the immigrant. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think it's pretty disgusting. There was maybe one last bastion, which was the church, where we could expect this type of thing to go on, these types of messages to ring clear. But it's just all out of whack with this MAGA movement. It is a stain and sickness on this country. It has perverted so much of our lives. And of course, Donald Trump, like the petulant child that he is, responded like this to that very inspiring speech.
What did you think of the service?
What did you think? Did you like it? Did you find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good service, no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They can do much better.
Was it exciting? Were you excited? I don't think they did a very good job. They could have done better.
He is such a thin-skinned, narcissistic asshole. I don't even know what to say. I think it's pretty disgusting what MAGA has turned their version of religion into. That evangelical base that is turned into this Christian nationalist morph of whatever is going on there. I don't think it is godly. I don't think it is Christian-like. And I think it's a damn shame that they are now using their religion as a weapon to go after their perceived enemies. I think that's gross, so I'll leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that rivals the absolute shit show that is the right-wing media ecosystem. So if you appreciate the work I do here, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see Donald Trump sanctioning political violence, as long as it's done in the name of MAGA, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.